It is a muggy winter night in New Orleans, Louisiana. Panning from the view of the ferry dock in Algiers, the city sparkles like a crown sitting above the ever-changing and unpredictable current of the mighty Mississippi River. Sparkling with lights and intrigue, the atmosphere is polarizing, depending on one's length of residency and experiences in the Crescent City. As a lifelong resident, I rarely participate in evening and night events anymore, maintaining 5 full-time jobs, the one currently paying my bills as a verbally and physically abused labor blue-collar employee. My time needs to be delegated with purpose. With all of the videos and photos that were plastered down my social media timelines, I needed to go outside to test the atmosphere and to get a few interviews done. While waiting to board the Algiers to Canal Street ferry, there was a long line filled with a plethora of black and gold gear, along with a few green and silver shirts mixed in. A group of locals standing in front of me were locked in an engaging conversation with an Eagles fan. Eavesdropping, I learned that he was from Philadelphia and found himself staying in an Airbnb in Algiers. He pointed and crooned, "I guess I'll just watch the game at the Crown and Anchor pub right there down the street." The RTA pulled out all of the stops operating on an event schedule, running 2 ferries at once to keep up with the volume of people. There was a diverse group of people waiting to board, hoping to either get a glimpse of their favorite celebrity, gawk at the light show projected onto St. Louis Cathedral, or just take advantage of the enforced security and be a tourist in their own city. Boarding, the security was seen and felt. The enforced security was polarizing to me. Personally, there were military police, local police, and the Coast Guard in any vicinity that you can breathe. Did I feel safe? Yes. Did it remind me of my jarring experience during Hurricane Katrina as a teenager? Absolutely. After a brief and choppy ride across the river, deboarding the vessel, I noticed that the line to get back to Algiers was stretched to Canal Place. It was at that moment that I realized I may have made a terrible, impulsive decision in coming out. As long as that line may have been, it was expected. The Super Bowl is a major event and traffic was restricted. Heading left, I began to stroll the riverfront in hopes of finding friends. As I meandered down the moonwalk, I noticed that one of the multi-million-dollar yachts was docked to my right. It was okay. I saw a nicer one on the HBO hit show Succession. So intrigued with my newly rediscovered Sony Handycam, I almost walked past my compadres. Together, we walked down Canal Street to scope out the possible interviewees. Upon getting an unbeknownst amount of dirty looks, rude comments, and flirty smiles, I stumbled across a few willing participants. Mentally sorting out and assessing the crowd, I noticed stark differences in the fan bases between the 2 competing teams. Chiefs fans were more reserved and demure in their behavior, while Eagles fans were essentially northern New Orleans in terms of crazy. Finishing up with Canal Street, we made a right onto Burgundy Street, then a second right onto Iberville. While on Iberville, we noticed an excess of security circling one petite figure wearing tan beige shorts. I believe it was Miss Cardi B. I did not care because as I inched closer to the infamous Bourbon Street, the security was seen and felt. The enforced security was polarizing to me, personally. There were military police, local police, and private security in any vicinity that you can breathe. Did I feel safe? Yes. Did it remind me of my jarring experience during Hurricane Katrina as a teenager? Absolutely. The amount of people piled onto the world-famous street was enough to send my anxiety to the roof. The sheer number of military police and bright lights was enough to send my blood pressure to the moon. I immediately reneged and decided to walk straight across Bourbon down Iberville to the historic St. Louis Cathedral to see the projections. On our way to the light show, I came to another glaring conclusion. Amongst the crowd outside, we ran into some interesting characters. Interesting indigenous New Orleanians, many being YouTubers and content creators. I noticed that New Orleans is not only hospitable, but almost everyone is a star in their own right, however that right may be. Passing artists and palm readers, the aesthetic projections were partially visible over the greenery and wrought iron fences containing Jackson Square. Local artists such as Becky Foz, James Mayachupelis, Terrence Osborne, George Rodriguez were projected onto the 3 side-by-side historical landmarks. Being up close and personal to the project was really cool, but not as fulfilling as getting a higher perspective of the building. Moving on down St. Anne Street, the group decided to take an ice cream break while I took a film break to air out my grief.
And after being at work all day and then coming out here, I'm not a fan, but I did it for y'all. I did it for the culture, did it for the home team. It's always for the home team.
Sending the ramp to the plateau at the Washington Artillery Park, I took in the view, sounds, smells, and excitement in the air, and still crashed out. I was exhausted after working unrequested 11-hour shifts at my blue-collar day job that pays my bills. Standing on top of New Orleans, viewing one of the most culturally beautiful, diverse, and spiritual cities in the world, I made a promise to myself and to my city. Regardless of how hard haymakers are thrown at me, how many creative ideas and innovations made by me are ripped off by those who do this media thing full time, I will never stop creating the art in my mind that is a byproduct of this unique town. It is a muggy winter night in New Orleans, Louisiana. Panning from the view of the Washington Artillery Park, the city shimmers like a rare jewel tucked away in a distant era in time. Despite the ever-changing and unpredictable current of life, just like the mighty Mississippi River, it will forever flow and be present, and so will I. New Orleans today, New Orleans tomorrow, New Orleans forever. L.J. Taylor.